we'll just introduce ourselves.
I'll start. John Sunkel, ECAN councillor on the Upper Waitaki Zone Committee from down in the Leaston area.
Richard Subtle, community member and farmer in Amarama. And I need to know how it is that David Stone doesn't have glasses, given that he's the same age as the rest of us.
There's a story behind that, Richard, and I'll tell you one day.
Okay.
I'm two-eyed, put it that way.
Off the record, yeah, fair enough.
Just don't get detached retinas.
Too much sailing, David.
Oh, well, seeing you put me on the spot, David Stone, member of the public, resident of Lake Oho Village, well, what's left of it. I will return, or Jill and I will return. Been a long battle with insurance, so, but we're getting somewhere now. So we'll be back to keep you guys and gals on the spot one day, Richard, and the free lunch. Can't resist a free lunch.
I'm Joy Patterson. I'm on Water Zone Committee, living in Twizel.
Ross McRoby, councillor for Waitaki District Council, and also for the Aharere ward, and living in Otamatata.
My turn, I guess. Kia ora koutou. I'm Miriam Morton, and I am a councillor on the Waimati District Council, which does have a little corner of the Upper Waitaki Zone in its district. So I just read the agendas and pop in when I can or when it's something pertinent to our district. But since it's on Zoom, it's easy to connect. So I'm here with you this morning.
Thanks, Miriam.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kieran White tōku ikawa. I'm from Te Runaka o Moeraki. Kei te pai. I see, did you want to start us off with the karakia once everyone's had a round?
I think we've got everyone, have we? I hope we have. No, yes.
I think there's a couple of, I don't know if Chris is going to do his, but it's Graham Clark here, ECAN.
Kia ora, Chris Eccleston, Southern Zone Manager with ECAN.
And Councillor Elizabeth McKenzie, ECAN.
And kia ora, I'm Kate Doran. I'm a Communications Advisor at Environment Canterbury.
Kia ora koutou. Sorry for being late, team. Matt Bayliss, community member, Waitaki Water Management Zone Committee, but also an employee of Meridian Energy.
I'm Emily O'Connell. I'm also a Comms and Engagement Advisor at Environment Canterbury.
Michael.
I'll do mine quickly and then Michael can do last. How's about that? Because I think that was everyone on the call. Kia ora koutou. So Janine Rue, I facilitate the Zone Committee.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou, ko Michael Tukuingoa. My name is Michael. I'm a Arawhenua Runanga representative.
Thanks, Michael. It's, I think Kieran was going to just do a karakia before you came in. So would you like to do that, please, Kieran?
Kia ora koutou. Kei te mihi atu koutou katoa. Kua haere mai koutou ki te awhi te kaupapa o te wā. Whakahere ki a tātou katoa. Nau mai, nā reira, nau mai tāti mai, mea noi tātou. Tukua te wairua ki a rere ki kā taumata. Hai ārahi aku mahi me tuku whai e te reo Māori. Kia mau, kia ita, kia kore ai kāro. Kia pūpiri, kia whakamaua, kia tēnā, huie, huie, tai. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Kieran.
Thank you for that greeting. Now we've any apologies? I think we've got a full house, have we?
No, I have an apology from Councillor Stuart Barwood.
Okay, Stuart. Thank you. Any further apologies? Somebody like to move, we accept those apologies, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thanks very much. Right, we'll go straight into minutes of the last meeting. Is anything there that anybody would like to bring up before we move that they be accepted? Nothing of any consequence. I think you've got it all right. It was a fairly brief meeting too, as I recall. But I had a read through, I couldn't find anything.
Chair, I'm happy to move the minutes from that meeting. Thank you.
You got a seconder?
Yep.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Right, and any matter of arising we'd like to bring up from that meeting? Most of those things are probably going to be dealt with in the main meeting anyway, so that's, shall we move straight into it? Probably the best way. Kate, I think you're up first with the Love Our Lakes campaign. Everybody's no doubt read what you've got there, but would you like to just go over that, please, Kate?
Thanks, Simon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Good. Atamare. Most of you know I'm Kate Doran, ko Kate Doran aho, he kai tohu tohu whakapā aho ki te kaunihera taio ki Waitaha. So I'm a communications advisor at Environment Canterbury. I'd also just like to welcome Emily O'Connell, who introduced herself briefly before. She's a new comms advisor at ECAN, based up in Cwms Street, but she'll be helping me in supporting the team with zone committee communications across the region. So you may come across Emily again soon. Thanks for inviting me to give this update today. As Simon mentioned, hopefully you've all had a chance to have a read through the report that I prepared on Love Our Lakes, just to give you a bit of a reminder of the context of it. And there was a wee summary in there as well to show you and remind you what we've done since 2015, which is actually going back a few years now. I thought I'd mention before getting too much into Love Our Lakes that we also do the other zone committee communications activity outside our Love Our Lakes throughout the year. So that includes things like the chair columns from Simon and stories around the biodiversity projects and e-newsletters and the snapshots that we put into local newspapers. So that goes on throughout the whole year. But today we'll just focus on the Love Our Lakes activity, which is very much a summertime campaign at the moment. So back to Love Our Lakes. It has been running since 2015, and we have changed it up a bit each year to meet new needs and highlight key themes as they've arisen. And just to mention also that it is in your action plan for 2021 to 2024. So there's a few references to Love Our Lakes in there, including references to linking into the responsible toilet use campaign for Lake Ruataniwha. So I've just popped in a reminder of what you've already put in there for your future actions. So yeah, today I'd just like to quickly go through this coming summer's campaign and then allow opportunity for discussion around future years as well. For this year's upcoming campaign, in February, the committee agreed to continue to support the Lake Ruataniwha Responsible Toilet Use campaign this year as well. And that's in conjunction with the dedicated community working group that's been involved with that. So planning for that part of the campaign, including a refreshed new angle, is already underway. And we've got a meeting scheduled actually next Wednesday with that working group to go into the more detailed planning and feedback stages for that part of the campaign. And last year we ran the responsible toilet side of things, but also continued with the general Love Our Lakes themes So that included our community posters that went, there were 5 different versions of those across the community, and then sort of general Love Our Lakes promotion through Facebook, news stories, and e-newsletters. So I thought, if it suits you, I'll quickly run through the recommendations that I have for this year, and then I'll take a pause at the end of those recommendations to get your ideas and feedback and see how you feel about those. So I'll just quickly run through the key recommendations I've got there. So A was looking at sort of including a wee bit more of a digital element this year. Particularly using Mackenzie District Council's digital screens, including the large one that they've got now in Market Square in Twizel. And also looking at using a camping app to push some digital messages out to mobile phone users when they come into the area. So there were 2 new digital elements that I thought would be quite useful for the campaign. Secondly, to simplify the range of posters and streamline the messaging to improve efficiency and distribution. Probably just to elaborate on that point, last year was quite, I guess, quite time consuming with all the different posters, and we did have quite a lot of different messages going on around the zone. So yeah, I would recommend maybe just making that a bit simpler and focusing on the summertime audience, and maybe keeping some of those more general zone committee community messages for other channels like your community newspapers. C, I've just mentioned about keeping the activity a little bit more confined to the school, or targeted, I should say, for the school holiday periods. As last year our feedback was this was very much the busy time and visitors really did drop away. So want to do our best to capture those people while they're there. D, relating to the Can I Swim Here campaign. This is an ECAN campaign that's run across the region, and we gathered some feedback earlier this year that there maybe wasn't enough presence down in Upper Waitaki for that, so we could look into making sure that we get some of that information to be seen by visitors in the area. And then E, also, yeah, we have a new resource for zone committee members to engage in Facebook and social media. So I'm happy to either share that with you as a presentation or to share that electronically. So I'll pause now and let you guys have any comments or questions on what you think about the Love Our Lakes element of the campaign coming up.
Simon, yeah, thanks, Kate. Look, quick question from me. I didn't see in your digital campaign any reference to local community social or Facebook pages, e.g. Otamatata Friends, Omarama Shenanigans, Upper Waitaki community pages, and I know there's a Twizel page as well, and they are quite well followed, those pages. So with your digital work, it will be very, very easy, I would think, to be able to transfer what you're doing on those main pages into those other social media pages that could have quite good impact as well. So if you could just have a little think about how that might work, that would be great. Thank you.
That's a really good point. Sorry, I should have actually mentioned that I've got a more detailed comms plan in the background, which has all the channels and tactics and timings and things like that. And using community pages is a really great way to get in. And probably one of the key things I'll say about that is that's an opportunity that would be really good for zone committee members themselves to help with, because as an organisation like ECAN, we're not actually in those community pages. So if members who are part of those pages could share the content that I help supply you ahead of the campaign into those pages, that would be really fantastic. But yeah, take your point entirely that there's also ones where it's more of an open membership and we can get involved in. I may come back to you to grab some of those names. And actually anyone else who's got local pages that they know of, just email them through to me and I can just add them to the list. But yeah, good point.
On the, this is my bugbear thing about the screens, the marketplace big screen in Twizel, has that been successful?
I didn't know it was working.
I have had an update from the comms team at Mackenzie District Council about that. I think there were a few minor issues for a start, but I believe it's all becoming operational, getting up and going. So yes, so we've definitely been given the approval to share messaging through that for summer.
Because when visitors come here, they don't care whether it's Mackenzie or Waitaki, you know what I mean? They just come into this area. It'd be great if there was consistency and therefore a bit of sharing the cost and get some value for money out of doing the same thing in different areas. So whether our councillors can talk to each other, so we just got one thing that looks the same, and it works for tourism or for this kind of public information or whatever. But it'd be great if we did have, because these little towns suddenly get absolutely deluged, whether it's a Marama or Odamatala or a Twizel, they just get buried in people, don't they? So it really would be great if we could get some consistency across the messaging, I reckon.
Yeah, agree. Thank you. I'll see what I can do at our end.
That's a great idea. There was some comment at the last meeting, I think, picking up different swimming areas for testing. And I noticed that Loch Cameron was in amongst those, and they thought one might have been pulled off and another one put on. But has anything come of that at all? Do you know, Janine?
I haven't heard anything further from Shirley, but I can follow up, and it'll probably be coming up as we're heading into that season now anyway. So I'll double check with her to find out if it has been added. Yep.
Yeah, it's certainly an area that, a spot that locals use a lot. So it's probably important. Thanks for that.
So I can just jump in there. There'll be a pre-season or pre-contact recreation season meeting shortly, and that will involve all of the agencies involved in that program. So that's ECAN, the district councils, and community and public health, and they'll have those discussions at that meeting as to whether or not they want to swap sites in or out.
Thanks, Graham.
Just back to Kate's program, it really looks good to me. I think we've all noted Doc and others have made comment around litter, mess and defecation has continued in a lot of our tourist areas. And whilst in the past we've all talked about foreign tourists and backpackers and whatever, we're still seeing a significant issue. So I think, targeting that holiday period, those local areas will serve us well, given that the fringes may not be quite as populated as they have been in the past.
And I suppose I could add that, of course, the campaign that the working group will be looking at it's reasonably extensive, and there'll be lots of cool ideas and things coming from that. But I'd really like to get their input and ideas around that too. So we'll be thinking of things like maybe some mini events and ways that we can engage the public a little bit differently this way around some of this time around some of that messaging. Thanks,
Kate. You've done a tremendous job right throughout the last 2 or 3 years. We commented on that, but it's great to see that it's carried on, because I think it's gaining momentum and people are talking about it, so it's really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. So just checking back through some of the recommendations. So for that first part there, so would the committee be in agreement that those things are in line with what you're thinking for Love Our Lakes this year?
Yes.
Yes, from me.
Yes, for me.
Yes, for me.
Great. And then also I did note down as well, like thinking about the future, because the months seem to go past very fast and we end up at summer. So, well, sometimes they go fast, but yeah, we seem to come around to summer quite quickly. So I had put an item in there about thinking about for the future years for Love Our Lakes, but I know now that you do actually have a planning session coming up related to your action plan, I think in October. Janine, I'm not sure if that was right. So I wondered if that might be something that you might want to spend some more time in that session rather than now, or if anyone did have any sort of really big themes or something that they would maybe like to see focused on in the future. Welcome your feedback around that too.
Be great to do it face to face rather than on Zoom, I reckon.
Yeah, that's
Sounds good.
hopefully the plan.
Kia ora, Kate. I was just wondering, I think it's great the mahi that you guys have been doing, and the promotion's all been, you know, well received. I was just wondering if maybe we could look into possibly, you know, it's not only that the whānau and that can't swim in the lake, but the kai being not, you know, not fit for eating as well. Have you had any of your stuff talk about that in the past? I'm not too sure. If I was just thinking that that's also one of the major issues. Not only can you guys not swim in the lake, but you can't eat from it either. And that in particular, kaupapa is probably you know, very relevant to the whānau. If they can't gather their kai somewhere, it's, you know, it's equally annoying that you can't have a swim, but if you can't gather your kai, that yeah, it was just a suggestion that I thought maybe you might want to look. Right.
Oh, that's really good feedback, Kieran. We have definitely started including rhetoric around mahinga kai, and including that as one of the reasons why people need to do the things that they need to do. But yeah, I think I'd pop that down as a possible idea for the future as well. And I agree. I think it would be something good to continue to include or increase to include. But yeah, maybe that could be a part of our next discussion if people agree.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's because is there testing, like, I mean, I don't know whether the waters. I know they're tested to say that they're not safe to swim, but are they tested to say that the kai is not suitable to eat there? Or I guess in my eyes, it sort of falls in the same category. If you can't swim in there, you're definitely not going to eat out of there, are you? But yeah, just a thought. Thanks.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit there if you want, Kieran. So the program that we run for Contact Recreation follows the guidelines set out by the Ministry of Health and Ministry for the Environment, and those are contact recreational swimming water quality guidelines, and don't necessarily relate particularly strongly to mahinga kai or food safety. I guess what I would say is that, you know, in many cases you need to get wet to collect the food anyway, but and so obviously there's a risk that we know about there, but I think some sort of information would be really useful, but it's probably going to be general information around risk rather than specific kind of testing to guidelines and that kind of thing. But I just think raising the issue and making the public aware of it would be really valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
Kieran, that's really relevant around our shallow lakes too, and that's probably where it's, you know, it counts a lot more. I'm thinking of Alexandrina, Middleton, and some of the other smaller water bodies. So yeah, it's good to bring that up, but it's something we can keep in mind, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a simple extension of what we're doing, and it's just another arrow that sits in there and gives someone something to think about.
Great.
Right, any further questions of Kate?
Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. I will be able to provide an update to the committee, especially once the working group for the Lake Road Taniwha have met too, to share their ideas and thoughts, which will weave into the bigger Love Our Lakes picture for the year ahead. So, yeah, we'll keep you in the loop on that before summer.
Thank you, Kate, and let's hope everybody can get down to the lake. It's always a bit of a worry, isn't it? With
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Thanks.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. Could I have a moment to speak as a member of the public?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, for those who know me, this is because I haven't been able to get a haircut, so don't worry, I'm not going to vote. Hello to both Graham and Ross and a couple of others. Could I speak briefly on Middleton? I've read the minutes from the last meeting and a couple of comments. This is not big noting. Jill and I had put a proposal to DOC 219, I think, in writing. We really like that spot. And if you remember, the committee met on site, I think, early last year. It was a very positive meeting. The fire took its toll in and around Lake Middleton, but it's created a great opportunity, I think, both in terms of the waterway and the surrounds. Now that, of course, is docks preserved, but you people did take a keen interest in Lake Middleton. Here's a couple of thoughts. One, I see it was referred to whether there's any tuna there. Well, quite likely there is. But Graham and I, your Graham there, did a freshwater study for fish. I think, when was it, Graham? Early last year. And it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it, Graham? In fact, it's probably the least successful of all the several water bodies we tried in the Oho Basin. I think that has potential. Now, I'm a fly fisher, and Richard taught me something many years ago, didn't you, Richard? To say, well, what do you do with the fish you catch? Oh, I said, well, put them back. Well, they are a pest. And I think, Richard, I've been knocking them on the head since then and giving them away. But seriously, there is an opportunity there from my experience with freshwater up this way. And it would be great if that could be explored. But the water there needs to be, well, not so much clean, but get the native, the introduced fish out of it. That would be the first thing. Jill and I visited, or I had a couple of chats with John Wilkie and visited him at his home. We didn't know of his passing, but learnt of it only recently. And he too, at that time, was very supportive of any attempts to clean out Middleton and restore it if possible. So that's the proposal that we put to DOC. Basically, keep it as an eco campground, maybe, cut the numbers, a whole lot of eco toilets, etc., but restore the surrounds and the water as well. I think there's a wonderful opportunity there to create something that would be an exemplar to the zone in terms of smaller water bodies. So we might pick up on that. We've been a wee bit distracted, as you can imagine, losing everything we had down there. And we haven't been back so far, but we're hoping to get back for a visit at least. One other thing I thought, and Michael might have a view on this, well, what is the Maori name for Lake Middleton? I know Middleton has a strong connection with the area, but maybe it's time that we look at its, shall we call it, its Indigenous name. Also, I'm suggesting that the committee or anyone who wants to work with Lake Middleton should also consult with the newly impaneled local association for the village. That's called the Lake Oho Alpine Village Residents and Ratepayers Association, Inc. They are interested in not just the village, but its immediate surrounds. And of course, the lake has been completely opened up now with the removal of all the wilding pines and larches. So it's now an integral part of that village. So I would suggest if there were any initiatives, please would you think about communicating direct with the association. By the way, I've got no connection with it, though Jill is on that committee. But there's an opportunity there to have a good collaboration. Now, I know most of this has to be done through DOC, but I think the zone committee, this could be, as I suggested, an exemplar. Let's get it right. Let's do it well. Get rid of the pest fish and bring in perhaps, well, Graham can better advise, more native fish and really turn it into something that would be quite a little reward for everyone who is involved, but also would be a great asset to the lower basin. So those are my thoughts. Yeah, an excellent opportunity to create something that could be an exemplar for other water bodies in the area.
Thank you for that, David. I think everybody's heard that. I think Department of Conservation have a lot of the say of what's going on, but I think it's certainly a good idea. So we'll take that on board.
Thank you, Simon.
Can I jump in here, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly can.
Cool. So, sorry, I missed the start of the meeting. I'm having techno issues down here in Christchurch. Yes, I'm not sure where you're up to. I was going to give a quick update on Middleton. Unfortunately, I missed last month's meeting, but yeah, just going from what was in the minutes. So just very quickly, there will be consultation, and particularly with the Runanga. I can't give you more detail on that at the moment because the dock ranger who's dealing with that is on leave at the moment, but that will be happening. and particularly with the OHA, the Conservation Trust as well. Doc is as a landscape consultant to help out is Anne Stephen, who many of you all know. She's familiar with the area and was a former member of the Upper Waitaki Zone Committee. The fencing will start as soon as possible, as soon as our lockdown restrictions, backlogs and that get on the way. Someone raised the boundary fence. The boundary is well marked now. There's pegs in there. Gus went down and checked them on Tuesday. So the boundary is all well defined. At a meeting or a couple of meetings ago when I was given the last update, talking about the vehicle and tracks and what was happening to them, all those roadworks and access works have been done. Gus said he's currently underway at improving water lines around the camping area. And with regard to eels or tuna in the lake, there are numerous reports going back to 1895, and they've been done by various organisations for various purposes, and eels have never been recorded in the lake. And like I said, there's Cawthron Institute, NIWA, DOC, Fish and Game Acclimatisation Society has been consulting reports for Naitahu and the electricity companies. That there are 6 species that are regularly recorded in there on all the fish surveys, going back 120 odd years. Yeah, but eels have never been noted in there.
Oh,
So yeah, so that's
thanks for that. Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that when I mentioned it the other week, and I did a few inquiries, and someone actually said that there was the largest eel caught on record, but clearly if it's not on record in NIWA's office or a Department of Conservation officer, well, here we are now, still a great opportunity, to perhaps have coda or or other native galaxids and things like that could be possibly
there are
things like that going. So just a mihi to David and his quartet before about what their intentions are going forward, and I think yeah, that all sounds pretty cool. Sorry to interrupt you there, John. Is it?
No, John. That's right. They're regularly 6 species. The 4 native fish. There's 2 bullies, 2 galaxids, and the 2 species of trout. And I forget which way around it is. One trout is dominant over the other, but around the 1890s to about 1930, Lake Middleton was regularly stocked with trout by the Acclimatisation Society, as it was in those days. But yeah, it's all the species that are there are in small numbers now. Whether that's because it's effectively a landlocked lake, small landlocked lake, no real outlet or inlet besides the streams coming off the hill to feed it. But but just it doesn't appear to have been ever a significant or an eel habitat at all.
Simon, a couple of, just to be a pain, subject to internet quality, can we have cameras turned on when we're talking? Because I just find it really hard to stare at a grey thing, when someone's making a point. I don't know whether it's because of poor internet, John, not having a crack.
Yep. It's definitely internet trouble with me that we haven't got because Doc works through Amazon Workspace and you can't have videos of Amazon Workspace.
Appreciate that. I mean, on the native fish, eels are pretty, well, in my experience anyway, they seem to get pretty much everywhere. I think it's a great idea to see whether it's not possible in a water body that doesn't have a lot of water flowing through it to restore it. It's only a tiny area, really. I think it's well worth tilting in that windmill. I'd love to know why eels wouldn't be in there if they were reintroduced, if there wasn't major competition. But again, I'm probably a bit of a crap record on that subject. I'd love to see that restored to native species only.
That could be. I'm not a fish expert, but that could also be because it is such a small and enclosed water body. There just might not be enough food source for eels. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I would have is how long has the lake been separated from Oho? And therefore, is it solely because they cannot migrate into that catchment that they're not present?
It's for thousands of years. Sorry.
Eels will find a way to get out of a waterway. I mean, they can get across land, you know, on a shower of rain or a heavy dew or whatever. So I don't think that little neck of land would stop them. But anyway, yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but yeah, I support the idea if it's worth having a go.
But I just comment quickly, once upon a time, it was a wildlife reserve. I'm not quite certain when its designation changed and by whom, but it has a history of being a protected area. It would be lovely to see that come back.
It was a wildlife reserve up until about the 1980s under the Department of Lands and Survey. So some of you, sorry, I wrote a report which we dished out at the field trip, but some of you new zone members might not have it, but I'll flip. So that it was a literature review of everything that's been written about Lake Middleton, basically, and it had all about the wildlife reserve status. That was mainly for birds, crested grebe and waterfowl. Then it became a recreation reserve, so it's had various sort of protection status over the years. But yeah, I can hand that report out again if anyone on the committee or public haven't got it.
John, you've got the sentiment of the meeting anyway. You can take that back to your department, and I don't think anybody would be against making that a very special reserve for all wildlife, be it birds or in the actual water. So can we rely on you taking that?
So I'm just not quite. So you want the current status of the reserve changed, because you know that's a legal process and it's quite a. So at the moment it was wildlife reserve, and the reason they took the wildlife reserve status off it by memory was because it got overrun with Canada geese and mallard and introduced bird species, and so now it's a recreation reserve.
Also, some people wanted to use motorised vessels on the lake. Richard, you bring up a good point. One of the reasons why it seems to be separated from the main lake was that the willows have slowly, over time, stopped the interflow that did exist between the two lakes. There was a time when it was. But anyway, that's just, I mean, there's a huge opportunity here. By the way, grebes breed on that lake successfully. Villagers have had a initiative that's gone on for the last 3 or 4 years. It's wonderful to see the grebes and their little chicks there. So there is a huge opportunity there. And John, hey, things can be changed. You've got a really good minister. Work with her. I'm sure this would be thing. And people at your local office, I think Mr. Morrow would be very keen to do something about this area with the support of the committee, please.
Yep. Just going back, so remember at the field trip, and it's again summarised in that report, so that the lake was naturally separated from Ohau by gravel drifting down, but whenever I can't remember how many decades ago that the lake, that ridge was actually raised for the road formation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's correct, John. The 1958 flood, which I was only a young child, but I remember going up there with my father. It was basically right across from the lake, right across to that were, you know, there was no, you actually had to ford water. So it wasn't until they tar-sealed the lake, the road rather, and they lifted the road up, and because it used to be quite a quagmire and there, used to get bogged and all sorts of things. So yeah, I think the compaction of the road as well as the willows all would have had their effect on allowing water to flow backwards and forwards.
And over the years, there has been various proposals and talks about culverts or something to connect Middleton to Ohau, but the rate of gravel drift along the ridge there, and that pretty much might be a fighting losing battle, that one.
It'll certainly be a constant anyway. So I think we've dealt with that. We can move on. I will keep a watching eye on that one. David, I know that were your ideas on that, and I know the locals love that lake, and so do the local rūnanga. So it's just something we'll keep an eye on and we'll keep moving through. Can we move on to Janine and giving you a report, please, Janine?
Yep. I'll just double check. John, was there any other projects you wanted to touch on?
It's finished.
Or is it just that?
No, it's just because I missed last month's one about Middleton with Viv doing the presentation. I was just sort of update with the minutes. Just a general doc thing. If anyone has questions and I have delay getting back to you, Karina's boy's been very sick. He's been in Timaru Hospital, so Karina's sort of hard to get hold of at the moment. And as I say, the ranger who's dealing with the public community consultation, she's on leave at the moment. So it's just sort of, I can't get back to you straight away for any questions.
I just draw your attention, Councillor Mackenzie has a question she would like to ask.
Please go ahead.
Thanks, Simon. I just have a question about Lake Middleton. Possibly staff might be able to answer this. What is the breakdown between the input of nutrients into Lake Middleton from pastoral grazing versus the tourist sort of input? Do you have any sort of feeling on the kind of percentage?
Look, I'll have a go at answering that. So during PC5, the sub-regional plan development for Lake Middleton, it was designated a sensitive lake area, which capped any nutrient load into the lake at sort of what we were seeing currently. But there was no attempt to divide that up between the different sort of input sources. So as it stands, it's all sort of capped at current state. But yeah, I'm not sure. And look, to be fair, and John might be able to answer this as to whether or not the toilets are self-contained. I think they are self-contained toilets at the campground.
Yep.
There is a big septic tank there.
Yep.
Thank you.
So is that pumped? So is that toilet pumped out, or is there a drainage field associated with it?
My understanding
there's a drainage. Sorry, there's.
Okay.
Sorry, was that David?
Yes. Yeah, my understanding is pumped out. It's quite a large one. Waitaki put it in before it was taken over. Yeah. It shouldn't be let to stream out, not there.
There's two things there. Yeah. So just to be pedantic, it sort of got landed on Doc. Doc didn't take it over. It was divested by the Waitaki District Council, so Doc got it by default, basically. But apparently the toilets are all compliant and everything, so the Waitaki District Council assure us.
I believe there were some old toilets there that we were concerned about when we did a visit. Have they been taken away or have they been fixed up?
They're a district council toilet on the road reserve. I'm not sure about those.
Yeah,
they're disgusting. They still exist, or did up till late last year.
Yeah, I thought we'd recommended that they be removed because they were disgusting.
That would be a good idea, Joy.
Mm.
Just wondering about that. Obviously, that's been brought up at the council, has it?
No, but there's similar situations in other lakes where there are these old toilets, as well as the Department of Conservation toilets. Yeah, so we're just sort of starting to become a bit, talking about this a bit more. Yeah.
I'll follow that up with our recreation people in at Waitaki, Simon.
I know
we did have a long conversation about it, in particular due to the rail trail going through and the fact that people would bypass the long drops and because of the quality or lack of quality. So it is a conversation that we have had with a wider group of the zone committee and others.
Yep. That's right, John. It was Alps Ocean, not the rail trail. Alps Ocean trail. For that reason, I know I've had a lot of feedback from people riding that, and they've gone into those old loos. And yeah, it make you want to ride pretty hard to the next destination, actually. But yeah, it's something we need to follow through, and we have talked about it. So thanks, Ross, if you'd follow that through to council.
This is not a scientific response to the question from the councillor, but in terms of agriculture, there isn't a massive amount of agriculture, you know, of any real intensity above that, I would have said. I think during the summer months when it's busy as a campground, there's a lot of human activity, and I would imagine that the amount of boats, etc., in that such a tiny waterway would have a big impact potentially as well. That's not scientific, but there isn't a big catchment of agricultural activity above that lake. Would anybody disagree with that?
You're correct.
I have one other concern. I know that the boys' high school lodge or whatever it's called that was there was going to do extensions, I believe, and I just want to make sure that what went in there in terms of toilets was a septic tank which could be emptied. I know that was the recommendation from the Conservation Board back when it was raised, so I don't know quite what happened there.
Joy, there's been a new block there for some years. The old homestead is not in a particularly good state, unfortunately. What was attached to that when a building consent was sought, I have no knowledge. It should be looked at, perhaps.
I think it should be, because I know that the Conservation Board were concerned that they had the right septic tank and things.
Also, another issue is the supply of water, but that's something that the village is concerned about because they've got the alpine champagne that we get from up near Freehold, and whether it's diverted down to Avoca House, as it's called, and then to the campground. So there's, you know, inflow and outflow issues. But the outflow can impact on the quality of the water of the lake. That could be a little gem.
Well, I think, Ross, you've taken all that on board. It'll be discussed at the local council meeting and followed up. It's probably something we can just recommend, that's all.
Yep. Just put it in the minutes and I'll follow it up when they come out.
Thanks, Ross.
One word from me, Simon. I feel like we've kind of spent the last couple of zone committee meetings talking about Lake Middleton.
We have.
And it's a comment for David Stone. David, Liv Campbell-Smith gave a really good presentation to the zone committee at our previous meeting, which made it pretty clear to us anyway that the Ōhau Conservation Trust is working very collaboratively with a number of stakeholders, including the Department of Conservation. So in response to your points about how the village feel about the lake and being an integral part of the village environment, I just think I can't speak for the whole committee, but I would really encourage the village to work collaboratively with the Ōhau Conservation Trust. Working together and collectively, you can be quite impactful, as evidenced by the work that Liv talked to us about last meeting. You know, there's been an awful lot achieved over a very short period of time through a bunch of very hard-working volunteers.
That's a good point. There are different people on both those entities, and I'm not going to get into it, but there's not a lot of great communication and collaboration, unfortunately. I'll be quite blunt, the villages are a bit divided for a whole lot of reasons. The Conservation Trust has really done planting, and that's good, but I think it's up to DOC to take a very key role in the whole of the lake and its immediate environs, and that's where it's got to come from. The volunteers, so to speak, or the villagers can only do so much. But the landowner really has to do it, but with the zone committee involved because of the quality of the water. But you're right, it has to be collaborative.
Can I just one comment there? Just when we went on that field trip 2 years ago, and various discussions we've had at meetings over the years, it's sort of like there's a directive from the committee and the community that they want to be more involved in DOC, less. So that's why DOC is sort of giving a lot of letting the Ohau Conservation Trust take a lead, shall we say, in a lot of this work.
Yeah, but you're the landowner, you've got the money, you've got the legal responsibility. Volunteers can only do so much, John.
Yeah, but Doc's like funding some of it, and just on legal, the point I always make, we're not the landowner, we're the land manager.
But, yeah, it's certainly, you know, we've thrashed this out over quite some time, but I think we know what everybody's trying to achieve. So let's just move on with that at the moment. And I think we can have a report a bit later when all that work's been done, with that conservation work has been done. We still, the willows are the ones that still haven't come out, even though all the wilding trees have, but I think we'll just keep a watching eye on all that. So I think we will move on. We've got a bit to get on with. So Janine, would you like to report, please?
Yep, sure. So a couple of things there. So the first point was just on the CWMS progress report. Now, I believe the chairs from all of the zone committees have received a letter or correspondence from the regional council just around the reporting. So they changed how the report was done to previous years. So you may have seen some news articles around that. So yeah, I presume, Simon, you've received your letter this week.
That's correct. And I mean, that's I read that, and thanks to Kate, I think we've really have got the word out of all the things we have tried to achieve and our wins on the board. We certainly haven't won them all yet, have we? But I thought that was being a bit tough, really, because we have only got so much funding, and we highlight all the problems and we try to solve those problems, and we'll continue doing so. But I think it's really, really important when we do get wins on the board that it's certainly it's portrayed, you know, through the media that we are having some successes. You know what I mean? It's not all negative. We are trying. And we'll continue to. And our area, generally speaking, we're a wee bit luckier than most, I guess. We haven't got quite the same pollution in some of our waterways, but let's be the case forever. We don't want pollution in our waterways up here. So I think, I don't know, would you like to comment more on that? I think it's just really getting that publicity out when we do have runs on the board.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think it's something that should be of concern. As I said, it's just more they've changed how they're reporting on the successes, rather than they're focusing on the outcomes rather than the actions is really what it's about. If any of the committee are interested, we can circulate the letter that was sent to the chairs. But yeah, there wasn't anything I was concerned about anyway, as I said, and Simon's pretty well touched on it as well. So in terms of the next point, so the CWMS Action Plan Fund, as Kate mentioned, and hopefully by October we can do it in person. I'd really like to workshop what the Zone Committee would like to use that $50,000 for this financial year. So obviously bearing in mind the financial year runs until the end of June, so there's actually not a huge amount of time to spend that money, but $50,000 I don't think goes very far either, depending on your aspirations. So it'd be working through what's in your action plans, and of those priorities, where you would see your money going. So obviously keeping in mind a couple of things that have come up is obviously the Love Our Lakes campaign, Lake Middleton, Lake Ruataniwha. There's a bit around the youth engagement as well. So yeah, sort of have a think about it, and at the next meeting, bring to the Zone Committee, the Trials of the River was the other one, what you would like to see that money go towards. And then we can try and push to get that spent through the next 7 to 8 months. Are there any questions around that before I moved on?
Probably with the prioritising those, I mean, really we need things like Twice River, which appear to be hard to move on with. It's really, really important to move on those things which the public are really supporting, you know, because it's so much easier to, and we're also far better runs on the board when the public are trying to achieve a particular outcome in some of those areas.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, the more support you have, the easier it will be to get that money out the door is really the main thing. So have a wee think about it, and hopefully in October, yeah, we can have a face-to-face catch up and we can work through this as a group together. So then that sort of rolls into the next comment. So October, November. So we've only got 2 meetings left for the year. October, I envision being a bit of a workshop and a catch up on where to for the next few months. But the question I put to the committee is, for November, what would you like to do?
Can I just October pre-fire ban season? Are we going to replicate that, the Hungy, and have that as the closing thing for a meeting? Silence.
Dead silence. Yeah, I think people are wanting to get together in October and have a good old chat, but and I can understand that once November comes, we're in that fire ban time, aren't we? Or can be, especially towards the end of the month. What's your thoughts on that? Kevin, what's the story there with? We're not hearing anyone there. It's gone very quiet. Which is what
we hear a siren in Oda Matata. There's a siren going on at the moment.
The fire season's already started by the sound of it.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, we very much want to do it again, and we'll do it, I guess, without the zone committee. But I mean, it's felt like it's been quite a good community thing, and gives us a little bit of profile locally, and we get the school here and all that thing. So if we could do it again, I mean, if we can do it in November with a special dispensation and controls, because I don't think an outbreak of fire is terribly likely down there by the stream. But yeah, if the feeling is not that the zone committee don't want to do it, then we'll just do it separately.
Hey, Rich, I'm keen. Yeah, there's a fair amount of heat in the Amarama Ahuru catchment community. I think it's just a really good thing for us to be physically present and engage in any way we can. So I think it's a green idea. November, probably slightly better weather-wise, but I'm ambivalent.
I've heard there's great food at the Omarama pub. Perhaps there could be a barbecue out the back to save fire risk. I'd come for that.
I did say to Janine that we could shift around, and I'd be quite happy to let a bit of space down by our river. It's actually the Fraser, but it's also a tributary of the Twizel. Maybe we could bring in a local school here. Maybe it's something I haven't done any work with, but even not this year, we certainly could do it in the future. It's an opportunity as well, because I always think it's great to bring young school children into that as well, because it's just a great time of the year to get everybody down the river and having a look around. And I think it was excellent in Marama, so I can't see why it wouldn't be a really good opportunity for local Rūnanga to get involved here as well.
Yeah, what are Michael and Kieran thinking?
Kia ora koutou. Can you hear me?
Yes, again.
Yeah. Mike's the man with all the Hungy skills, but I just thought it was such a great kaupapa. That was my first attendance last year, and yeah, I think it's definitely. Hopefully, we can have that experience again, and yeah, like I'm also, I think it'd be a great idea to have it in other locations if the opportunity arose. So I'm fully supportive of the idea of the zone committee Hungy, and I guess it hopefully Mike will be able to be in attendance, so he can get up at the crack of dawn and get things rolling, like and a few others that were there as well, from what I hear as I slept on. Kia ora.
Yeah, no, I took all the Hungy. I reckon it was a great couple of days, so I'm always keen.
Okay, well, since we've got a bit of momentum, can I suggest that we do it again this year here, and we build towards next year somewhere else or whatever, or do another one? I don't see why we can't have a couple, because I mean they are good community events. If we did get into November and there was a fire ban, can we get a dispensation with lots of protections around it to do it, or are we better to aim for October? Michael, can you help us with that?
Sorry, I'll jump in for a second. So having spoken to the fire, I think he's a fire officer, fire warden, out in that area last year, he felt fairly comfortable being, because it's a cultural fire rather than an outdoor burn per se. So he didn't feel too concerned about it. We did get a permit in the end anyway. He said we didn't actually need one. As long as we have those controls in place, I think they were fairly comfortable with it. But we can have that conversation. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on it.
I'd just like to say that I'd like to keep the October meeting as a workshop to get some things sorted. So November seems the best time of the year for me if you can get those permits. I'd also like to say that I love the hangi. I think it's great. And I really would like to have one up here in Twizel and involve the Twizel area school. So I don't know, Simon, I liked your idea of it's a very special spot up on your property there.
Well, I think we can look at that maybe next year or whenever. Thank you, Richard, for offering that area again. I mean, it's great that we can have a spot down there by the river. It's perfect. I think we'll move that fact that October be our get around the table and chew things out, and we will try for November if we can, please, for the hangi. And once again, thanks, Richard, for making that area available. So is everybody happy with that?
Look, I am. Can I just make the point that we have some real challenges in that Ahuriri catchment where we probably didn't get the result we wanted from our last conversations with Environment Canterbury. So I think the ability to possibly have it at Richard's place within the catchment and bring some people in and have a conversation would also be helpful. But absolutely believe in the future, whether we're in Twizel or Tekapo, where we're trying to push our influence a wee bit is something that we could do in the future, or as you say, more than one in a year.
Thanks, John.
Janine did a great job of coordinating things. So will you just give us the date, Janine, and keep us honest? And Michael and myself and Kieran or whoever else will do the physical stuff and get a bigger guest list coming as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I'll look into the dates in November. We'll probably just stick with the zone committee meeting, but I'll let you know, within enough time to get things sorted.
Thanks, Janine. Any further business that you'd like to bring up? That's pretty.
I think that was it from me.
Okay. We'll move to general businesses. Anything that any of the committee would like to bring up?
I've got one item, Simon.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Matt.
Great steer from Councillor Stuart Barwood to connect with Emily Bradbury, another Mackenzie District Councillor. Nothing really to report materially other than Emily's response to my outreach on working collaboratively on the developments at the Twizel River was received very, very favourably. And Emily shared with us that Mackenzie District Council are working with a couple of stakeholders through a planning process for the Lake Rurotanipa Lagoon area, the area of interest from this committee, from our interventions for the E. coli outbreak. And Emily was drawing parallels between the two approaches. So far so good. Emily's committed to getting back in touch with Joy and myself after this week's council meeting, and we'll take the first opportunity made available for us to connect up with her and start from there. So I hope to be able to report equally positively to the committee in October.
Thanks, Matt. That's good news. we'll,
Yeah, just Stu's not here, but he's been helping every way he can all the way through this process. So just want to acknowledge it was a good piece of advice from him to act upon.
thanks, Matt. Well, that's noted. Any other general business people like bring comment through? Otherwise, I think we can move. John, did you want to make comment?
No, I'm good.
I've suddenly got you in front of me. I've got guys cutting a tree down in my yard outside, and all sorts of noise going on, so I'm finding it hard to hear. Anyway, so if that's all there is, can we rely on somebody to give us a closing karakia, please?
All right. Tēnā koutou kua mutu tō tātou mahi e te atanei. Kia ora mō te kōrero, mō te whakaaro ki ruka i tēnei mahi. Nō reira e mihi atu ana. Mea noi tātou. Ki ka mana ki tako o te mea kāro, ki ruka ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mākihi kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori. Tūturu, whakamaua, kia tēnā, haumi e, hui e, tai. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all in October.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, everyone.